This is a recap on the collection. Enjoy. During a vehicle ride, Mr. Peters comforts his younger daughter, Elena, over her mother's death. He reassures her with the aid of pronouncing that he's going to continually be together along with her each step of the way. Suddenly, some other car crashes into their vehicle. In more than one TV broadcasts, the serial killer with the alias The Collector has been the principal awareness of a large manhunt. Years after the accident, Elena is now a youngster with listening to troubles because of the crash. That night time, she gets a name from her boyfriend, Brian, who cancels plans together. She gets a name from Missy and Josh. She receives equipped and kisses her father earlier than she leaves for the nighttime. They arrive at an empty alley. Elena says the word nevermore, and that they right away advantage get entry to the energetic scene. Inside, they begin to celebration the nighttime away. Suddenly, Elena sees Brian making out with some other female of the crowd. She punches him with inside the face as payback earlier than taking walks far from the dance floor. The notorious collector is looking they all from above the membership and selecting his new sufferers. Elena receives out of Missy's sight to have a moment, finishing up in a remote room in which she unearths a large pink box. After searching intently, it begins off-evolved transferring as though a person is inside. He grabs Elena out of desperation for freedom, and that they stay away from a spear shot from the wall. It activates a lethal entice returned with inside the dance ground orchestrated with the aid of using the collector. A large rotating blade begins off-evolved plunging into the pool of human beings, and Brian spots it proper away, giving him time to run. The system begins off-evolved shredding masses of human beings in the membership in only a be counted of seconds, ensuing in a bloodbath. Back with inside the room, Elena receives anxious and runs outside, in which she steps on a completely skinny twine which initiates swords to fling out, hitting human beings fatally. Meanwhile, Missy and a set of human beings get trapped as metallic boundaries drop in a small section. The collector stands on a shaft from above which lowers gradually, crushing the sufferers to demise as Elena watches her exceptional pal in whole horror. She sees the collector immediately searching at her, inflicting her to run for her life. However, he captures her at the same time as Arkin escapes the use of Brian's frame as a protecting shield. Enduring the pain, he receives as some distance away as he can from the constructing after seeing the collectors searching at him. Arkin is introduced to the hospital, disoriented and traumatized with the aid of using flashbacks of torture. Just then, a person named Lucello enters the room and introduces himself as an employed investigator. Lucello indicates Elena's photograph and asks if she has been on the party, which Arkin right now confirms. According to Lucello, he has 48 hours to retrieve the lady earlier than the collector takes her lifestyles. Lucello makes a name to Mr. Peters to tell him that Arkin has agreed to participate. All the while, Elena receives a flashback of the accident's aftermath in which a strange searching guide seems to interrupt the window and shop her lifestyles. She then wakes up in Terminal Field and sees a person being tortured from a small hole. Peeking through it, the collector senses her worry and offers her taunting looks. A crew of mercenaries composed of Lucello, Lynn, Dre, Wally, and Paz are delivered collectively to seek the collector, which include Arkin. Arkin exhibits how the killer captured him and the way he took word of the adventure with the aid of using slicing his fingers throughout each turn. He retraces the location, relying on his reminiscences and his scars, and correctly leads the institution to the collector's base. Meanwhile, Elena makes use of her bra to grip the latch and release the field from internal. She then sees a room packed with torture guns and some other field. The collector re-enters, noticing Elena's escape, so he frees numerous spiders to expose in which she hides. As the small creatures creep on her, she stays nonetheless because the state of affairs holds a skinny line among lifestyles and death. When the mercenary institution triggers the alarms, the collector right now runs out of the room to check, giving Elena a hazard to escape. Outside, Arkin refuses to go into the hotel, however Lucello holds him at gunpoint, leaving him no preference however to expose them the contents of the deserted building. The collector watches the institution invade his area from the surveillance earlier than setting on his black leather-based mask. That's his signature look. Elena manages to discover an opportunity to go out and crawls closer to the slender area. Unfortunately, Lynn, who is outside the hotel, gets stabbed to death by none other than the collector himself. Inside, Arkin fights off a half-masked person. Fortunately, Paz comes to his rescue and shoots him. Shortly after, they find a pile of disassembled bodies, turning the place into a brutal slaughterhouse. As a defense, they shoot at the half-masked subjects, who are too drugged and far gone into their creature minds. They manage to reach a safe room where they continue to carry out their mission of finding Elena. Unbeknownst to her, Elena tries to find a way out on her own and ends up in a room full of cosmetic products. She hears a woman crying for help and opens another box. A prisoner named Abby comes out of the box, but is reluctant to leave out of fear that the collector might catch her again. Discovering more about the hotel, the group encounters a shirtless man desperately asking for help. He cries while saying that he didn't make it to the collection. Just then, a bomb explodes from his neck. The explosion triggers a trap where 3 sharp bars impale Dre, causing his death. Arkin sees this as an opportunity to get out of the group's sight and finds an escape through a narrow trap. He ends up in a room with flickering lights, where the collector comes from behind him. However, Arkin luckily escapes his captor unharmed once again. Meanwhile, Abby and Elena team up to escape, going through the deadly hallways together. The three of them advance, but get distracted when they hear Paz's cries for help. In an attempt to rescue her, they get trapped inside a room full of mannequins, where Lucello looks for her by listening to the screams. Noticing wires along the way, Arkin calls out to Lucello to warn him that it is just a trap. Elena leads all of them into the room where they could have contact outside, but the two men are unable to hear them. To get their attention, Arkin shoots one of the men and leads police officers to gather around outside the building. Arkin fires the second shot, causing the officers to call for backup. After a slight moment of relief, Abby locks the door from the inside before she betrays the group and gives up their location. However, she dies after stepping on a board of nails and falling back into an iron trap, folding her inside. In a fit of rage, the Collector attacks the group with a gun and a pair of dogs who advance at them. While Paz, Arkin, and Lucello are combating the wild dogs, the Collector kidnaps Elena and brings her to his lair. As they get up, they find Lucello pinned to the ground with nails and with a bigger trap just above him. He commands Paz and Arkin to leave him behind and save Elena quickly. Both of them find her strapped to a bed and untie her just as a metal cage falls, trapping all of them inside. Enraged, Arkin repeatedly insults the Collector, calling him names as he calmly observes the group. At that moment, he brings out a lighter and makes it apparent that he is going to burn the building down before setting a thread in flames. Paz tries to unlock the cage with a knife but drops it in the process, leaving Arkin no choice but to sacrifice himself. He also manages to throw Elena and Arkin across the room, but Lucello enters just as the Collector plants another kill. In an intense knife fight, Lucello and the Collector combat each other, but the latter wins. Arkin gets into a fistfight with the Collector, releasing all his anger and rage at the merciless criminal. Arkin brutally beats the Collector and throws his body down a chute and onto a pile of corpses covered in gasoline before lighting it on fire. As the building gets eaten by fire, firefighters hear Elena's screams, so they tear the door from outside to rescue the remaining ones. Elena sees Arkin trapped in a massive circle of fire, who has seemingly given up. After some time, Arkin tracks down the Collector's house by searching for every entomologist around the area. In the Collector's home, Arkin confronts him about his identity and says he will torture him as he tortured Arkin. Suddenly, the Collector attacks Arkin but is forced into a red box that Arkin brought. He desperately clings onto the sides of the red box as Arkin shuts the box, getting his ultimate revenge.